Good morning and welcome back to the Good Morning Minute podcast. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and I'm excited to kick off season 2 with a theme that touches every single one of us: relationships. That's right, friends. Relationships are at the heart of our human experience. They shape who we are, how we grow, and how we show up in the world. Whether it's family, friends, romantic connections, or even the relationships we have with ourselves, each one carries lessons, challenges, and moments of pure joy. This season, we'll sit down with incredible guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and insights on building, nurturing, and even healing relationships. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive into conversations that inspire connection and growth. Now that we set the stage for today's conversation on relationships, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest. He brings a unique perspective and a wealth of experience to the table. I know his insights will leave you feeling inspired and equipped to navigate your own relationships with more intention and understanding. Please join me in welcoming Matthew Britt to the Good Morning Minute podcast. Matthew, I want to welcome you. I am excited that you are here.
Angelina, thank you so much for having me on the show. Very grateful to be here and look forward to bringing as much value to the audience as possible.
Awesome. Well, then let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what drew you to today's conversation.
Yeah, so I'm a father of three. I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. Um, Love building and helping others. Very, really driven by big picture mission. And then at the same time, a husband, father, very I'm very driven by helping bring out the best in my wife and making sure that she has a phenomenal life as well. Because, we're two individuals with our own goals and dreams. And yes, we have a number of things that we, do together, but also we need to ensure the other person is living out their best life and that we empower them to do so if we ever expect to have them want to stay with us for the long haul. So I'm driven to be here today to share whatever wisdom that I've accumulated over my 45 years on the planet and the thousands of personal friendship, business relationships, and everything that I've gone through in my own experiences.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to jump into this conversation. And you've mentioned a number of things that we can just kind of talk about in regards to relationship. So let me ask you this question, because you are a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, and so many other things. How do you balance giving to others in relationships while maintaining your own boundaries and self-care?
The personal relationships, I make sure I dedicate time for that. But really, it's scheduling. I schedule my time, and my wife and I even put our time in our schedules. Because if we don't schedule it, it's easy to never have the time. So I try to do that with everything. We try to schedule time with our children, schedule time as a couple, schedule time with other family, and then I schedule my business and personal stuff in there as well, so that we're always ensuring each of us are getting what we need to fill up our own cups, achieve our own goals, drive our business forward, and produce results, while at the same time ensuring we have the dedicated time to take our kids on one-on-one dates or have dates with one another as husband and wife, which obviously is extremely important too. Making sure that we have, because when our kids are no longer with us, it's still going to be my wife and I, right? So the kids are with us for a certain part of their journey, but at a certain point, they'll be gone. Hopefully, they still live around us, and we get to, really be a part of their lives. But we have to make sure we have a great relationship, husband and wife, so that when that time has come, we still have a strong, thriving, growing, passionate, loving relationship between the two of us. And I think that's critically important and something that if anybody's struggling to make time for anything in their life, well, look at your schedule. What's in your calendar? Because if you're not putting it in there, you're probably never going to get to it. So a recommendation is definitely utilize the calendar. Today, it's so easy to tap into calendars on our phones, computers, that kind of stuff. You can create a shared one that everybody in the family sees, and you can use that to run your life.
Mm. I like that you mentioned time management because it is true. Being a busy person myself and doing several things, when my daughter reaches out to me and she's like, "Hey, can you watch the grandbabies?" I have to put it on my schedule. Otherwise, I do forget with all the other things that I have tasked to me. So I like that you're bringing up time management. Matt, I'm curious, what defining moment in your life helped shape how you view relationships today?
One that stands out to me is actually attending Date with Destiny by Tony Robbins. I learned some very valuable things in there about your personal, like significant other relationship, the differences between men and women. Um, this was back in 2010 that I attended that. Also, through high school, I read the book Women Are from Mars, Men Are from Venus, or the other way, Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus. And, just hearing, or I guess reading as I read that,
Mhm.
just seeing all the differences, right? We're the same as far as we're both alive and human and from nature, but we're incredibly different. Our chemical composition, our hormones, the body structure, how our brains develop, who develops faster, etc. Men and women are just very different from one another. So it's like, how do you create harmony in order to have a thriving relationship between men and women? And then also, how do you have thriving relationships, men and men as friends or whatever, and vice versa for women and women interactions. There's so many different things that all of us
Mhm.
have as uniquenesses. And it's about learning how to mesh with that, come from a place of caring and compassion and understanding, learning about human behavior. And I intentionally gather that knowledge so that I can have stronger relationships. And I can also identify people that I don't want to have relationships with. I
Mhm.
can spot warnings when they present themselves and vice versa, find the gold, find the high energetic people that operate in the right mind frame and have the same type of caring and compassion about relationships that I do. And, just be able to mesh with those who you mesh really well with, and also be open to those who you may not mesh really well with, and be able to almost like be a chameleon and adapt to whatever situation is that you're in. Another defining moment, there was the high school. There was I just turned 30 actually when I went to Date with Destiny. But prior to that, I studied neuro-linguistic programming for years. And in NLP, they teach you a lot of things about relationships. One of the best things that I've ever learned about is really understanding that everybody is always doing the best they can at the time with the resources that they have. Always.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when you paradigm shift and view everybody through that lens, it's so much simpler to never take things personally, to never have expectations really get smashed because they're doing the best they can. And whether that was the absolute best for that situation or whatever it is, they're doing the best. So everything else is up to you. How do you take what's just happened? And once I really gathered that, it put me in a spot where I took things almost never personally. I found myself much more compassionate around other people's struggles because you
Mhm.
never know what they're going through. You never know what's going on. So make less assumption and be more seeking to understand, asking better questions before you're ever, really making judgment.
Mhm. I like that. What I'm hearing is just this undertone of knowing yourself, being more self-aware having an understanding of your own emotional capacities and emotional intelligence in order to engage in relationships. How beneficial is it to pour into yourself? Because even in the beginning of our conversation, you were talking about you and your wife being two individual people coming together and committing to each other, to teamwork and relationship with each other, but you still have to maintain some independence. So what's the benefit of maintaining that independence, pouring into yourself as it contributes to all the other relationships that you have in your life?
The more you grow, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress that enough. You have to intentionally, in my opinion, be doing personal growth every day. Work more on yourself than you do anything else, and work on your awareness of yourself. Become really aware of the words you choose to say, both out loud and in the conversations you have with yourself. And, knowing that the most important conversation you're ever going to have is the one you have with yourself, that's a good thing to start, right? So
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to how you communicate in your own head, that little voice, and then pay attention to the words that you say when you speak aloud to others. Words have immense power,
Mm-hmm.
and thoughtfully choosing the words to say is an important thing, because very often people will say things that they maybe didn't really want to say, but they lack the awareness to regulate and choose what actually comes out of their mouth. Taking time to pause and think through what you're going to say, not just, randomly pulling at things and
Mm-hmm.
just word vomiting everywhere, because that'll get you in trouble. So, as far as the personal development goes, absolutely invest time in developing you. Absolutely work on your awareness of what's your energy, what do you say, how do you say it, how do you carry yourself, and make better choices every day on what you're feeding your brain, who you associate with, what you're feeding your body through your food, what time you take to do better, what time you take to clear your thoughts, right? Do you ever sit alone and think? Because that's important too, right? Getting comfortable with being alone and quiet and thinking, and then thinking about, how do I want to show up to the world? How do I want to show up to my friends? Are my friends important to me? Do I take the time to show them they're important to me?
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll do simple things like that consistently, you'll see, A, you'll build a thriving relationship with yourself. B, because you have a great relationship with yourself, you're going to be much more attractive to other people, because you'll have a whole new air of confidence because you love yourself and have a good relationship with yourself. And people want to be around that. And you'll attract people who are in line with the energy and the frequency you put out. And because you're constantly improving, you'll be attracting better and better caliber of people into your life that are aligned with how you carry yourself.
Mm-hmm. I love this. And I know that you're a father and you have children. So, how do you take this concept and pour into your children? Because you're talking communication, you're talking being aware of the tone, the manner that you address a situation, but also the words that you speak to your
Yep.
children. Because,
Yep.
through the ages of 0 to about 5 years old, children are so impressionable. They absorb everything through their senses. So, how do you take that knowledge that you have and just pour into them to help them grow their identity and understand who they are?
Yeah, great question, and extremely important. And another area that I think we don't put enough intentional personal growth and awareness around, because it is, children are the biggest challenge that nothing can prepare you for, that you can have a long lasting either positive or negative impact on these little, basically blank slates
Mhm.
full of brilliance and curiosity. And my wife and I took this very seriously, so we made sure we invested in books prior to having children about raising great adults, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is to bring excellent people into the world, not just be with kids, right? We're trying to develop exceptional adults that add tremendous value to society. And what we did was paid attention to great books and experts in those topics. We slowed it down. We really tried to, or make extra effort every day to get to their level, communicate to them, not above them. Obviously, sometimes it's hard, we're taller than the children, but we get down on our hands and knees, we sit on our bum, we get close in that way, or we lay down with them and talk. We constantly remind them of, no matter what you do, our love for you never changes. Sometimes your behavior may upset us, but that doesn't mean our love has changed. And, mommy and daddy may be upset about something. We want to talk with you and work together to solve it, but our love for you is no different. As a matter of fact, it's stronger than it's ever been. And we're always here for you to come to us if you ever have questions, if you ever want to know, if you ever think we need to be better. We actually ask our kids, what could daddy have done better today? And we let them say it.
Mm-hmm.
And, giving kids the opportunity to be vulnerable and share their emotions and thoughts. And, at a certain point, sometimes they don't even get what you're really asking them, right? They'll, what could daddy have done better today? And they'll say, I wish you were a unicorn,
Mm-hmm.
because they're off in childlike playland.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain point, when you work with that practice, eventually they'll see that as very honorable and valuable for them, where you're asking for their feedback. What's
Mm-hmm.
their, because remember, they're going through life through their own lens. We think they're on the same plane as us, but we're at two different, completely different wavelengths and experience.
Mm-hmm.
Although we may go through the day almost side by side, their day is very different than our day. And it's important for us to get into their day and
Mm-hmm.
give them the ability to share what they are experiencing to us, so that they feel that they're heard, that we are actually caring about them and their life experience, what they're going through, how we can help them be better in their eyes, not in our eyes, through their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I found that's an awesome practice that we've implemented into our life.
I love this. I love this because you're absolutely right. And coming from a generation where my parents were boomers, the concept of raising children were children need to be seen but not heard. So I grew up having to silence my voice, which as an adult became a challenge because I never wanted to challenge ideals or question authority or, ask why we're doing something. I just kind of followed whatever was told to me by, my superiors or whatnot. Just to come back and have to reprogram myself to be able to assert myself and say, hey, I don't think this is right, or I don't agree. I love that you're instilling these concepts of it's okay to have feedback. It's okay to give me, even as a parent. I wish that my children, I know raising them, they're all adults now. But going back to my eldest, who is almost 30 now, wishing that I did a little bit more of that in the beginning, because I would love for him to just come back and say, this is how I feel, or, what you did, I wish you would have approached me differently, because uh, we tell them as teenagers, hey, we want a communication with you. If you're in trouble, I want to know about it. But if we don't teach them in their early years, and you talked about practice, if you don't teach them in their early years that they can do that, then they don't trust later in their teen years that is something that they truly can do.
Yeah.
What was it in your life, whether it was growing up or, maybe a family member that helped influence your parental relationship today?
Well, I got to learn what I didn't want to have happen.
Mm,
I think that's the biggest thing
mm-hmm,
is, you know, I love my parents, fantastic. And also things were done that I don't want to mirror.
mm-hmm,
So I took it very seriously to carve my own path and do things the way that I felt would be improvement. And I'm doing it intentionally by seeking outside resources to help me grow and be a better father and guide and their partner through life. It's not about me telling you how to live. It's about me helping show you, guide you, and also be there behind you to lift you up when you need to, and to show you I've got your back through the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Because none of us are perfect. Each of us are doing the best we can at the time with the resources that we have. And the thing that I think children need more than anything is knowing they have love from their parents no matter what, and that we have their back no matter what. That always inside, even as adults, we're still, there's still times I feel like a little boy around my parents. And I want to make sure that when my children are adults and they feel like little kids, that they still know that their father loves them like they're little kids, and also as the incredible adults they've become, and that regardless of the choices that they have made, I love them first and foremost. The other things are stuff we can deal with. If they end up going down a bad path and make some mistakes, okay, I've made lots of mistakes too. Does it mean that I now can't love you the same way? Absolutely not. What I want it to mean is that you can count on me to be here, whether I like what's happened or not. I'm still here as your father and I'll listen to you instead of trying to fix everything unless you want my help to fix it. But first, I got to listen and I got to let you share what's going on from your perspective and what things that I can do if you want it to help you navigate this challenging time. Because I find that a lot of times as adults, if we go through challenging times and we need our parents, so many times they're not actually there to listen and to empathize and to let you just go through what you've gone through and get it out. Instead, they immediately wrap emotion around it. They immediately start thinking of other bad things that happened in the past and tie them all together, or think that we are just, calling for a solution when maybe that isn't what we're calling for. It's, I just want you to listen to me as my parent,
yeah.
be able to be a little child again and get my stuff out to my caring parents, right?
Mhm.
So obviously, navigating all these things is a challenge. None of us are going to do it right every time. That's okay. The most important part for everybody, I think, listening to this is give yourself some grace and also know you're doing the best you can at the time with the resources that you have. But if you're aware about it and you have the desire to improve, that's the great thing. Is if you're willing to put in the work to become better and you're willing to communicate with your children about your shortcomings, right? If you can go to them and admit, Daddy made a mistake, I'm sorry in how I reacted at that time. That's all on me. It wasn't you. If we can do these little things, all of that stuff puts deposits, so to speak,
Mm,
in the trust vault with your children that can then be potentially withdrawn later in life, as you're talking about when they're going through their teenage year struggles, early adult year struggles, that they know you've deposited so much trust for them that they know they can come to you with anything, and that your first reaction isn't going to be a judgment and I'm so mad and all these things. It's all right. Thank you for sharing. Man, this sucks, but I got you. Let's work together to get through this. How can I help? What a different place.
It is. It is such a different place, and a place where your children start learning who you are as a person as well. So you get to be vulnerable in front of your
Yeah.
children, is what I've come to learn in raising mine. And I love this. This is great information. Okay, so let me just kind of ask as we get ready to wrap things up. What is one piece of advice, if anybody is struggling with their child-parent relationship out there, that you would suggest?
First, I would ask you, how seriously do you take it? Do you want it to be better?
Mhm.
Or is it something that you just, this is my job and I just do it because I just do it? Like, I would hope you take it very seriously and that this is kind of one of the things that's your life's work. And that if you have that desire to be an excellent role model and excellent at developing adults, that you look for resources, because there's a lot of very intelligent people out there with a lot of experience that have raised phenomenal adults, developed phenomenal adults. Those resources exist. So look for them. I can't say I know a book off the top of my head that I want to point somebody to, but they're out there.
Mhm.
So if you take it seriously, get out there and start looking for ways to improve your ability to have better emotional intelligence, better emotional regulation, better communication ability, better self-awareness, because those are some of the core fundamentals that will help determine your ability to influence, guide, and support your children
Mhm.
into becoming great adults. But also, all four of those things I said will help you in any relationship you're in.
Absolutely. Love it. All right, Matt. We are wrapping up our conversation. If someone was like, "Hey, I want to learn more from you," where could they get in touch with you outside of this podcast?
So they could actually send me an email if they wanted, or they could find me on like Facebook or something. But my email address, I guess you can put it in the show notes, but it's Matthew at foodforestabundance.com. Again, that's Matthew at foodforestabundance.com. And then you can search for me on, LinkedIn, Facebook, any of those places. It's Matthew Britt, and happy to connect and talk.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Matt, for your time and your knowledge. I know that someone out there that's listening is going to take it and run with it and make changes in their life for sure. All right, everyone, that is a wrap. And you know who I am. I am Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.